What's up, everybody? My name is Ryan, and I'm the student pastor here at Beach Church. And while I love to preach, I love sermons. They're helpful. They're a great way to learn and grow. Sometimes we need more than a sermon. Sometimes we need a conversation, and we get more out of a conversation. So over the summer, we're going to be talking about some topics that a lot of young people have questions about or struggles with. And we thought the best way to do that would be to talk to actual students and both high school and college students. And so today I'm joined by Brad, Jacob, and Sara.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, guys.
How's it going?
Brad.
Hi.
All right. And so this week we're going to be talking about something pretty heavy and something that people of all ages are struggling with, especially in 2021, and that is pornography. So just a warning, this conversation will involve sexual topics and terminology, and it might not be best if you are in the car with kids or something like that. We also understand that talking about pornography can be triggering to people that are struggling with it and with addiction and all that kind of stuff. And so if that's you, just know maybe this isn't the best thing to listen to, but we hope that it will be something that brings freedom in this area no matter where you're at. And so real quick, I'm just going to share a few stats, and we could spend an hour talking about statistics on pornography and pornography use, but I'm just going to spend a minute just going through a couple of stats because I think it's important that we realize how widespread it is, how common it is, especially for young people. So first off, 84% of 14 to 18-year-old males have viewed pornography. 84% of 14 to 18-year-old males, 57% of 14 to 18-year-old females. And so a lot of times we say, oh, it's just a guy thing, but it is a guy and a girl thing. And we also know that people aren't necessarily the most honest when they are questioned about these kind of things. And so probably any statistics about porn use is on the low side of what reality is. This is a stat from 2013, so I know things have changed in the last 8 years. 450 million unique visitors to porn sites a month. 450 million unique visitors, different visitors a month. And that was in 2013, so I can't imagine what it is today. According to data from SEMrush, traffic analytics tool, porn sites receive more website traffic in 2020 than Twitter, Instagram, Netflix, Zoom, Pinterest, and LinkedIn combined. And then lastly, in 2019 alone, the equivalent of nearly, this is crazy, 6,650 centuries of pornography were consumed on just one of the world's largest porn sites, just one of them. So,
do you mind if I add one?
Go for it.
90% of internet users are exposed to ads for porn websites every day when they are surfing the internet. So only 10% of people don't receive an ad for a porn website while surfing the internet. That's everyone using the internet in every country in the entire world.
This isn't a stat. I'm just making it up. But
that's good.
Love things that are made up.
I think almost everybody receives spam direct messages from pornography websites or pornography accounts.
Yeah, like on Instagram, direct messages. Yeah.
And so if you're on that account, you're probably getting unprompted messages from pornography accounts. So obviously super widespread. So first, we'll just talk about this. How would you guys define pornography? In 1964, there's this famous quote from a Supreme Court justice where they were talking about pornography and obscenities, as they called it, and the justice said, it's hard to really describe it, but I know it when I see it, and that's become some famous quote on it over the years. And so a lot of people define it in different ways. How would you guys define pornography?
I can tell you what Google says and then basically how I feel about that. Pornography is any depiction, so word, photo, or video, of sexual organs or activities with the intent to stimulate erotic feelings or behaviors. So basically, it's any media that intends to sexually stimulate you through the depiction of body parts and sexual activities.
I would probably say like any act of like media towards people having like sexual intercourse or anything regarding sexual activity.
All right.
I would say, any photos or videos stories of sexual encounters or sexually provocative images.
Yeah. Yeah, I think everything y'all said was right. It can be anything, because back in the day it was like books. Like, I don't know if any of y'all had the moms that like read those weird romance novels with like the buff guy with like a, never mind.
They do have some about COVID now, in case you're wondering.
Books about COVID?
Like erotic books about COVID, yeah.
Oh, that's nice. And so really, yeah, it's anything. It can be words, it can be articles, it can be pictures, it can be videos, it can be sounds that have to do with basically arousing people sexually. And so, again, I think a lot of times some people will just be like, oh, it's only a video with people having sex. But, like, it's really anything, and it's kind of like a gateway drug, because you might see a picture of a naked person and then, like, say, oh, that's not pornography, but it leads you towards more hardcore pornography. Yeah. So let's start with this. The majority of people are exposed to pornography by the age of 13, with some as early as 6 or 7. So when did you first get exposed to some type of pornography?
I'll go first, guys. Don't worry. The first time I was exposed was in like 4th or 5th grade. I was an extended day, and this kid was like watching something on his little flip phone. Very young, in the middle of extended day before school started. He was like, "Hey, everybody, come look at this." So that's the first time I ever saw a penis.
Wow. Okay.
I think in 5th grade was the first time I heard anyone talk about it. But the first time I like physically myself was exposed to it was in 7th or 8th grade. I don't remember how I got there, but it was there.
I think mine was between like 6th and 7th grade, somewhere in that like time range, either one. And it was like one of my friends at school was talking about like porn at school or something, and I guess I just like searched it up later trying to figure out what it was.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a lot older than y'all, so I was a little bit older because we didn't have exactly the same access to the internet and that kind of stuff. But I was probably in 9th grade, I think. But I know that now it's so easy, especially because of phones. And so many people are exposed to it at a really young age, because there was a time where it was like you only were exposed to it if you like found it in your dad's closet or something like that in a magazine, or like went into the wrong section of a video store, which those don't exist anymore. But there was like an adult section, which was always kind of weird. You know what? Actually, this is my first exposure to knowing about it. I went with my friend when I was 5 or 6 years old to a video store, and this makes me sound so ancient. And like his older brother, who was like 18 or 19, went into this closet that said adults only, and they like had this separate little section for pornography material, and he just went in there to like peruse. It was like this tiny like closet. I remember seeing him walking and be like, what is that? And realizing like, oh, he was going in to like see things that like were inappropriate, and that's all I really knew at the time. But yeah, it used to be a lot harder to encounter it, and now it's very, very easy. Why do y'all think this isn't in any of your notes, so I'm just throwing this on y'all. Why is pornography so tempting?
I think a lot of it isn't necessarily the lust aspect, because I think lust is almost a secondary issue that people struggle with. I think things like mental health, so like depression, but also like loneliness and inadequacy, like low self-image. I think all those things like start to steer you in a direction to fill that emptiness. And so you get pointed to things like pornography, which it's like, okay, I biologically felt satisfied from this, and so I feel better about myself for this little bit of time. And I think the thing that leads later into like addictions and things like that is you just crave that over and over again to fill that emptiness.
Yeah, I agree with Jacob with it not only being like a lust thing, but like a stress reliever almost, because like especially guys, they can get very frustrated, like sexually, emotionally, mentally, everything. And just the feeling like that it like provides, I guess, is like a big stress reliever to most guys.
Yeah, I also think all of that coupled with the convenience that you were talking about, like that is a stress reliever, and it's a lot more convenient than going out and, I don't know, like running a couple miles or doing other things that are less negative but are also stress relievers. It's super easy because no matter where you are, you can just
It's like
go on your phone.
It's like a convenient drug.
Yeah, exactly. And it's free.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too is like, I feel like everyone's heard the term sex sells. And so there's almost an exposure to pornography before pornography of like, well, every movie and TV show is using sex or like stimulation to drive viewership or like advertisements or whatever. And so it gets to the point where by the time you're 13, if you haven't watched pornography on the internet, like you've probably been exposed to like something trying to stimulate you for one reason or the other. And so it's not that far of a leap to go from not seeing it to seeing it because our culture is just so casual about sex in general.
Yeah.
General.
I think it's like a maturity thing also. Like people want to feel like, especially at like a young age, like 12, 13, 14, you want to feel very mature. You want to be with like all the adults, all the high schoolers. And I guess just having that sexual aspect in your life just makes you feel older, makes you feel more mature.
That's a good point. So what are some of the problems that you guys see with pornography? There's a ton of ways we could go on this, but what are just some of the first ones that come to mind of the problems? And not even just from we'll get to Jesus and the Bible later, but even just from just any human being, no matter what they believe, no matter what their age is, no matter what their relationship status is, like what is the problem with viewing pornography?
It's like a very unhealthy addiction. Like basically, in my opinion, on par with doing some drugs. Like you'll be, I guess, watching pornography, and then when you're done, you just feel like a monster after. You feel horrible. Like, why would you do that thing? Why would you look at that? You just feel terrible about it. But that addiction just keeps coming back to you over and over again, and it's very hard to like stop.
Yeah, and there's studies that show that your brain, much like there's other stuff, not just pornography, but your brain reacts in a similar way when you view pornography as it does when you're using certain drugs, and anything that's like bringing pleasure to you, it can get you hooked on it, and it gives you this satisfaction within that's like a drug. So yeah,
I think a lot of times too we think about the like personal effects of pornography of like, oh well, you know, it's gonna mess up your self-image, or it's going to make you view partners in like this really like different light than God intended it. But I think another thing that people don't think about is what it does to the people who are in that industry. A lot of them didn't have a choice when they got into it. Pornography is like one of the biggest contributors to sex trafficking. Like something that I remember reading about, most males in the porn industry have a rod inserted into themselves so that they look bigger, and like things like that, like just really horrible things that the people in that industry go through. And a lot of the content that you see on those websites isn't produced by a porn company. It's like stolen from people without consent, and like probably the people in those videos didn't even give consent in the first place. And so like from step one to before you even viewing it, like porn creates so many problems.
Yeah, going off of that, I think like the people that are involved in it are affected the most by us viewing it, because when we're seeing those like human beings as objects, all of the major porn companies are seeing them the same way. And so like those are human beings with souls and with like a spiritual connection, and they matter, like they're important people. But when porn companies are using them, stealing them or buying them from different countries or wherever it may be, they're showing those people that it doesn't, like that they don't matter. And so like the mental health effects that come not just to the people watching it, but also to the people that are involved with it is also a major problem, I think.
Yeah.
kind of an aside, but also related. Like, that's why I think it's so frustrating to watch. Like, our culture will watch, like, Jake Paul and Logan Paul do all these things, like, even though they hate them, like, and don't want to support them, just viewership alone, like, tells them, oh, people want what we have to offer the world, and so we're going to keep doing what we're doing. And so then in the same way, like with pornography, like, if you don't like the idea of people being brought into the industry through sex trafficking and the way that it affects the people in that industry, then you viewing it is giving a completely different message. You viewing it is saying, I support this, I want more of this, keep doing what you're doing because I'm giving you the money and the affirmation that those porn companies want to make more content.
So let's get back into the objectifying people. What do you guys think is a consequence of us objectifying people in pornography? So when we continually watch it, we begin to see people as objects and not actual people. How do you guys think that affects our lives once we step away from a computer screen or a iPhone or whatever?
I feel like we begin to value like relationships differently. We begin to value relationships as a sexual driven thing rather than an emotionally and unified sort of relationship.
Yeah, it kind of means to an end. I also think just outside of like dating and marriage, like, it just lowers your value of people in general. And so in the sense of like, my mission as a Christian is to go and love people the way that Jesus did. Well, all of a sudden people don't seem as valuable to me, so that mission seems way less important. But also just like family relationships and friendships, it becomes deteriorating because those people in your life that care about you and that you used to care about, like, all of a sudden don't have as much value because you've been like building this mental stigma of objectifying people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. It definitely goes outside of like romantic relationships into like every area of your life basically. And so like if you're seeing the people on the computer screen as less than or like not worthy of your time, or like you wouldn't talk to them if they were on the street, you're going to start seeing like everyone that you walk past like that. And if we're called to reach all people, how are we supposed to do that if we're seeing people as not as worthy as us? But I think it also like objectifying those people changes the way that you view yourself as well. And so like Brad was talking about, after you're watching pornography, you feel like a monster afterwards because you're just like, I can't believe I just did that. And so not only are you objectifying the people that are in the video, but also when you're going about your life, you're like, oh, I'm a piece of garbage.
Like, you're like degrading yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And your self-image like becomes a lot less because of what you're watching.
And also
I was just going to say, because you look at, and this is kind of another reason pornography is so bad, is that it makes us think fake is real. And 95% of what you see on a pornography is fake, from body parts to acts to the way people react to different things. Like, it's almost all fake. It's like, I mean, it's movies, it's entertainment. So like, and so when you see a bunch of fake, we'll just say this, we'll say when you see fake body parts or things that are mostly unrealistic, and you hit the mic. Amateur status.
That's embarrassing.
You think, like, you see that a lot, and you begin to compare yourself to those images. Like, there's no, that's another reason, like, why, you know, we look at our bodies and we think, well, my body's not good enough, because we're comparing ourselves to either something that's unrealistic or photoshopped or completely fake or not genetically altered, but surgically altered. And so, like, guys and girls will look at that stuff and think, oh, I'm ugly. I'm nothing. I'm worthless. And it like changes the way we look at our bodies.
I feel like it. Oh, sorry.
You're good. I was going to say it's a real double standard, because we look at ourselves and think, I can never add up to that. But then we expect it in our partners to look or act or be like the fake that is presented to us. And in reality, like, they will never be that, because that is scripted and produced to be that specific way. And, you know, that's just not, it's not reality. And in the same vein, like, of reality, like, pornography just perpetuates stereotypes. So a lot of the time there's like a lot of racism and like prejudice and things like that. And so like if you also, you know, are not someone who wants to be considered racist or like perpetuate stereotypes, like, but you're supporting that in pornography, you're kind of giving off this like dual edge message because you are supporting it. It's there.
Yeah, you're helping an industry that puts in their titles and in the way they treat people. Many times they treat black people as less than in pornography. They treat LGBTQ people as like a fetish or just some like again object,
like a joke.
Yeah, as a joke and like that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of things. There's a lot of violence, and we wonder why sexual assault's so common. Like, part of it's because now we got people growing up and looking at, like, they're watching things and they're basically told through the videos, oh, this is okay.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. And so it perpetuates violence as well and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and we see, like, on college campuses, the number of sexual assaults go up, like, year after year. One, because people are talking about it more, but two, because in most videos for pornography, the message is if you just push hard enough for long enough, they'll give in, and the ending is what both people wanted all along. And like, that's not reality. Like, when someone says no, it's because they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And like, if you think that you know better than that person, like, that's just not, again, not reality. But it's also like, it leads to a really horrible place, and a place that most people don't want to end up in.
You got any thoughts on that, Sarah?
I agree.
Okay.
That's my thought.
Thank you.
You are a resident female, so I didn't know if you had any comments on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it goes both ways. Like, obviously, I feel like it's safe to say that for the most part, women are less like forceful, which has just been my experience. I can't speak for everyone, but like having encounters with men, with people of the opposite sex, like everyone is very like forceful, and you can just tell that, I don't want to say it's because they're watching porn, but like you can tell a difference between people, I think, that are watching porn consistently and are not, just in the way that they behave and the way that they act around people of the opposite sex.
Brad, how have you seen I think it changes the way we look at sex. And like, not just people, not just ourselves, but like the actual act of sex. And so how have you seen like guys in high school or heard them talk about sex, and how has like pornography affected the way a lot of like teenage guys are looking at sex?
I feel like all of it really starts off as like a confidence booster. Like, getting into porn, I feel like is you try and be confident by that's the reason you get into porn, to gain confidence. But whenever you're like doing it, you, in my opinion, what I've seen is lose confidence. People lose, like, I guess, the ability to like socially talk to other people. Like, guys become like scared to talk to some girls. The act of sex in high school, at least, or the idea of it along with porn, it just becomes like such a necessity for some people. Like, they need it to survive, which goes along with it being like a free, easy to get drug.
Yeah. What else do y'all think about just the way that it alters our view of sex?
I know, just in my own experience, like, I had no concept for sex, like, prior to pornography. I could not have told you how it worked. I could not have told you the purpose. I just heard the word hundreds of times. But like, then after like viewing it and like being involved with pornography, like, all of a sudden I had like so many like conflicting ideas of what sex was supposed to be, and it like took years to dismantle what was mostly lies told to me by pornography. And like, now being in a relationship where we want to honor each other and honor like the way that God has asked us to do relationships leading up to marriage, like the struggle of being like, okay, cuddling is not a means to an end, or like kissing is not even a means to an end. And like, you know, if I had continued to watch pornography, like when I was most addicted to it back in high school and early college, like I don't know if I could be in a healthy relationship that didn't depend on sex to make it work, because that's what my brain told me sex was supposed to be and what a relationship was supposed to be.
Yeah. I also think that, like, in terms of our view on sex, like, it turns it into something that's, like, super casual, and, like, something that, like, if I see a man on the street that I want to have sex with, like, I should just do it.
Yeah.
Because it's nothing. Like, I can meet someone and just have sex with them whenever I want. Whereas it's meant to be between a man and a woman in marriage. And so, like, it's like a holy thing that God intended to be good. And so for that to be corrupted because of the way that we're viewing people have sex and the way that our culture is portraying it, like, it's changing the, like, way that people see it.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people are like what Brad was saying earlier, like, it makes you feel older, it makes you feel like you know things, but like that's one of the big things is like a lot of people are being educated on sex by pornography, because if the average age is 13, a lot of people are seeing pornography before their parents ever talk to them about sex or before they ever have sex. And so what do they go into their first sexual experience with? They go into it with just their idea of what they saw on a screen, which was fake, which in a lot of times, again, was violent, or the girl just did whatever the guy wanted her to, and it didn't matter what she thought, and like all these things. And it's like that education, crappy education, basically, is like leading a bunch of young people into thinking sex is one thing when it's really another. So
I think the other thing about it being so casual is I don't think a lot of our students even recognize that, like, exchanging pictures on Snapchat and things like that is pornography. And technically, if you were to get caught with a phone full of saved pictures from someone else, and you are in middle school or early high school, you're under 18, that's child pornography.
Yeah.
And like, you as a child are helping spread child pornography around, which is not something you think about when you're, you know, a 15-year-old boy, and you're just like, oh, like, this will be so cool, like, whatever. Like, I don't even have to watch anything. I can get it from someone else, or whatever the thought process is. But now you've engaged in child pornography. And like, most times if you would be like, oh, that person, you know, dealt child pornography, you'd be like, that person's disgusting.
Yeah.
I can't believe they would do that. And like,
I've heard of so many people that, like, from students, of like, so many girls will have like said like, oh yeah, guys will just send nudes,
unsolicited
requests.
Yeah.
Guys that I know from school will just ask me for naked pictures of myself, and it's like, where do those guys get those ideas? Probably from pornography, from this thing. It's like, well, I mean, what are you doing? You're objectifying the other person when you do that, and that comes from something. It comes from, even if you don't watch pornography, but like just a pornography culture, and like, like, oh, well, you know, it's not that big of a deal. It's just a picture. Or, oh, well, like, you know, I'll just ask. And if like it's just crazy. Like, people that barely know each other or see each other in school will just like ask each other for these, and that's it. And like,
yeah. Well, and girls will also, like, I've talked to a couple guy students who have just been like, I didn't ask, and like, girls have just sent something because they assumed that's what I wanted. And so going back to like distorting like your self-image
and objectifying.
Yeah, like, now there's an entire generation of, you know, young women that think the only way they can be noticed by guys that they're interested in is if they bring themselves to that level, and if they, you know, present everything to this guy, because that's what culture has told them is necessary to be noticed, to be valued, to be in a happy relationship, is they have to, like, put out, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, it's a whole nother conversation, so I'll leave it at this, but that's part of what leads to a lot of what we see on social media with what girls will post, because they get more comments, they get more likes, they get more compliments when they post themselves.
Many people see it as like a body confidence thing, like which I really don't understand why posting like pictures of yourself like that, you're basically objectifying yourself to some degree, is considered a body positivity thing.
Yeah, I think it goes both.
Well, they get encouraged.
Yeah.
And why do they get encouraged? Because people are yearning for that, and they're telling them we want more and all that kind of stuff, and it just
guys posting weird gym photos like shirtless flexing or like on the beach shirtless flexing produce the same results that like a girl sitting on the beach in a bikini or on a boat or whatever. Like they both get positive reinforcement, whether it's like, oh, the boys hyped me up for my gym photo, so that's what it means to be a guy, or like girls getting both girl and guy attention, or I mean some guys probably get girl attention from gym photos, but see that as way less likely.
Actually,
but
I was just listening to a podcast the other day where they were talking about how there was this guy, like a big fitness guy, and he's like, I hate all the shirtless stuff, but I know that if I do my workout shirtless, that I get 10 times the ratings, and that's just more money for my fitness company and all that kind of stuff. So I just do it even though I hate it. And it's like, but yeah, that's the whole thing, is like social media allows us to just see people kind of like the way we want to see them, and like, and it kind of works both ways. Like we want to give that to people because they're basically valuing it and that kind of stuff.
And again, if you don't want that content to continue, but you engage with that content and you support it and you hype those people up for doing it, like you're just producing the demand for more and more of that type of content. And so like, I know it doesn't seem like not liking a photo is going to do anything, or not commenting on a photo. You don't have to go out around and like block and report your friends for posting like weird stuff, but like you don't have to like every photo in your feed, and you don't have to comment on everything that your friends post. And like if they ask you about it, you can be honest and be like, hey, like I think of you more than what you presented in this photo.
Yeah.
And like if my one like really made that difference to you, like, you know, I think there's a deeper issue than this. And like that's an insane conversation to have in middle school and high school, but I think it's not asking too much. I think culture has told you that's asking too much.
And I would say one more thing, just from a married perspective, is like I think pornography totally changes the way we look at sex, in that it makes it all about us. And so you can watch the pornography you want. You can watch it when you want it. You can see the type of people you want. You can click into another window, all that kind of stuff, to make the experience everything you want it to be. And it makes it all about you. And then you see people in the videos that are making it all about like the guy or whatever, and he's just getting what he wants and all that kind of stuff, and who cares what the girl thinks. And like those ideas go into your sexual relationship. And I remember learning and realizing like, oh, like once I got married and started having sex and stuff, like I was like, oh, like you have to really care about the other person and not be selfish in real sex. And it's not like pornography where you just get what you want, you get in, you get out, and you just get on with life and you're just done with it. Like there's like it actually takes caring for the other person and wanting the other person to have a good experience and all that kind of stuff. And that goes into a lot of the biological stuff, and we won't get into that, but like otherwise, you know, you'll just do whatever you want and then move on with life. And I think that's the way a lot of us see sex, because that's how we grew up in the pornography, and thinking like, oh, well, I guess like it's just about me, and like I don't really have to worry about the other person. Like they'll figure out their own deal, but I just need to make sure I get the pleasure I want.
Yeah, it doesn't make it special at that point.
Yeah. So let's do this. Let's just look at what the Bible says about pornography. We all know this is one of those things. The Bible does not use, well, it does have a Greek term that's similar to pornography, but it doesn't have the idea of videos and pictures of naked people in it. It doesn't say, oh, don't go on a website and look at pornography. But there is a lot about lust. There's a lot about what you do with your eyes and about all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to read a few scriptures and just have you guys respond and tell me what you guys think it has to do with pornography today, how it applies today. So Matthew 5:28, this is Jesus speaking. And he says this: I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman, and let's say, or a man, anyone that looks at a person lustfully has already committed adultery in his or her heart. Anyone who looks at a person lustfully has already committed adultery with that person in their heart. What do you guys think this says about pornography?
Brad?
Oh, can you repeat it, please?
I didn't mean to call you out. I just wanted you to go first before Sarah and I.
One more time. I tell you, Jesus says, I tell you that anyone who looks at a person lustfully has already committed adultery with them in their hearts.
Yeah, so like you already have the idea that that would be an okay thing. Like you're lusting, that's without somebody's consent. You already have the idea that it would be an okay thing for you to do.
Yeah.
So therefore you're basically committing adultery at that point.
Yeah.
You're already objectifying somebody without their consent. You're treating somebody as if they're not the same, like as equal as you.
Yeah.
And you just see them in a different light than how God intended for you to see them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also think that goes back to what we were talking
Jacob's so proud.
about.
Because
Okay.
he's Brad's life group leader.
Yeah,
And he's just,
that was a big
he's
proud
just
moment.
smiling so proud.
Yeah, he's proud. I was also in the middle of a sentence.
Well, he's proud.
So.
Hey, can you wait for a second? Ryan was talking about how proud I was.
Yeah,
of
keep
Brad.
talking, Ryan. It's fine.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, great. I was going to say, I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the idea of like objectifying not only the people that are in porn videos, but the people that we see like on the street. And so if you're looking at someone lustfully, if you're looking at them and thinking like, dang, like I want to have sex with them, you're viewing them as an object. You're not viewing them as a person. Whereas that person has their entire own life, entire own thought process and everything. And like they're more than just an object for your pleasure. But when you're looking at them lustfully, you're telling yourself and whoever you might tell about it that that's the only thing that they're good for.
Yeah. I hear a lot of people talk about the idea of like, well, we didn't have sex. It was a blowjob, or it was hand stuff, or, you know, it was just, we kissed really, really good, and that's just how it was. And like, that's not sex, so we're safe, and we can do that as much as we want. But what this verse tells me is all that stuff is a sin, because if lust is the bare minimum for committing adultery, any action on lust would absolutely have to be a sin.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I'm going to just take a hard stance on, you know, hands, oral, anything that like rubbing or whatever, like all of that pre-sex or like non-vaginal sex is a sin.
Yeah. And when it comes to pornography, I mean, like literally, I don't think Jesus could be more clear here. If you're looking lustfully, you're committing adultery.
Yeah.
What are you doing when you're watching pornography? You're looking lustfully. And that's just the bottom line. Like that's why it makes billions and billions and billions of dollars, because of our lust for it. So
Well,
it
it's
doesn't
not
have to use
cheating.
the word pornography.
It's not cheating because it's pornography, so I can do it. It's not
Right.
a sin.
That's what people would say.
Yeah.
Funny, Jacob. Funny.
It was. I mean, that's genuinely what people say, and marriages are torn apart
Yeah.
because one spouse catches the other watching pornography, and it's an emotional, like, cheat. Essentially, it's like, why was
Yeah.
I not enough for you? Why did you have to go and seek this?
Yeah, it's actually a major reason on a lot of divorce court documents that divorce attorneys have talked about, like, is one of the partners being addicted to pornography, because, I mean, it's adultery.
Yeah.
And it may not be as big of a deal to certain people, but, like, on the whole, one partner doesn't look kindly upon the other partner, consistently looking at other people in a lustful way. And so let's go jump to another scripture. This is like a famous scripture on sexual immorality and sexual sin, but we're just going to look at a couple of verses. 1 Corinthians 6, verses 15 and 16, and then y'all just respond what you think it has to do with pornography. It says this: "Do you not know that your bodies are members of Christ himself? Shall I then take the members of Christ and unite them with a prostitute? Never. Do you not know that he who unites himself, or she who unites herself with a prostitute, is one with her in body? For it is said, the two will become one flesh." I'm going to read it one more time and just tell me what you guys think it has to do with pornography. "Do you not know that your bodies are members of Christ himself? Shall I then take the members of Christ and unite them with a prostitute? Never. Do you not know that he who unites himself with a prostitute is one with her in body? For it is said, the two will become one flesh." What are y'all's thoughts?
Jacob?
Nice, you got me. Can you repeat it? I know I'm going to bring up immediately another Bible verse, but it reminds me a lot of it, of like your body is a temple. And so when I hear like being united with a prostitute and your body's a temple, I think, okay, well, if I'm making my temple something that houses prostitution and adultery and things like that, then my temple is no longer glorifying God, and like its main purpose is not to worship him. And so as an identity thing, as a Christian, I would say my main source of identity and purpose is Christ. And from that, like everything that I do and everything that I am starts with him. But pornography takes that purpose and identity and it now shifts it to my identity is someone who's addicted to pornography, or someone who objectifies, or someone who needs sex to be sustained, or whatever the case may be. And so just the idea of like, again, it's not only the physical act of sex with someone, but the lust. So pornography, tying myself to a prostitute, that's really convicting to hear. And I think we treat it so casually that, you know, that verse holds a lot of weight.
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
I think Jacob pretty much covered it all.
That cannot be true.
Sarah?
I think that Jacob did a really good job.
Wow.
Thanks, guys.
Jacob,
See, the thing about Jacob and I is that our minds are very similar.
Yeah.
And so this whole podcast, he's been saying things, and in the back of my head, I'm like, I was going to say that.
should just leave.
Well, Sarah keeps saying stuff, and I'm like, oh, that was so good.
Yeah,
Well, I'm the resident female, so.
I guess it's me.
Jacob's actually my life group leader, so everything he says is also in my brain. We have the same brain.
So basically there's one person talking right now.
I'll just leave if that makes it easier.
The less holy trinity right here.
The other thing that I thought about when I read it last night, probably for the first time ever, is what is a prostitute? It's a person who, this is according to Webster's or Google, whatever, a person who engages in sexual activity for payment. So what are we doing when we are watching pornography? We are engaging with prostitution. Like, they are paid to have sex. And we think, well, it wasn't with me.
And I didn't pay for it.
Right,
Yeah.
or I didn't pay for it. That kind of thing. But ultimately, you are engaging in prostitution. And I think a lot of people, especially young people, would be like, oh, I would never do that. But it's like, but that's what we're doing, or at least what we're moving towards.
Yeah, but you simply viewing the content or media is paying the people. So in turn, you're going hand in hand with prostitution.
Yeah,
at that point.
and most of those websites get money from just ads being viewed. So simply your browser being up, allowing ads to pop up, is paying those companies. So it's not even about like paying for pornography at all. Like, you can go to a free porn site and, you know, you're still supporting them monetarily.
Those people are still making the money from your views.
Exactly.
So last thing, but I'd like to hear however much y'all want to share about your personal experience with pornography, both what your experience with it was or is, and what advice you would give to people who are struggling with it. So whoever wants to go first can start.
My experience with pornography has been, I guess it started 6th, 7th grade, and it's really just an ongoing thing. Like, during life groups and everything, we're always told, like, talking about trying to stop pornography, getting accountability and all that. And for the most part, everyone stops for like a good week or so. Everyone's like pretty solid about it. People are holding each other accountable. Then everyone slowly begins to fall off with each other, and we lose that accountability. People start thinking it's okay to continue to watch porn because nobody's holding them to a standard. And then I guess you just like downfall, you spiral, and it's like going through a rabbit hole, but you just keep going over and over again, and you just don't stop until you really see yourself at a point where you see it completely wrong, and you see you're objectifying these people without their consent. It's just awful when you begin to think about it when you're done with it.
Yeah.
I talked about it a little bit earlier in the podcast, but after my first exposure to pornography in like 7th grade, it was like a slow, like kind of burn of every now and then I'd be like, oh, I'll just go check out and see what's happening. Haven't been in a while. And then it would get to the point in late high school, early college, where I would say I was like addicted to pornography. Like it was like twice a day, most days of the week. And like, especially when I moved out and I lived by myself for the first time, it was like, well, I have low self-esteem, I'm depressed, and so I don't want to hang out with anyone. I'm not at work or school right now. I'm at home alone. So I guess the only thing I can do is turn to pornography. And so for a good chunk of time, that like consumed me. And then it got to this point where I was so upset at myself for being addicted to it that I went to a Christian prayer and healing ministries and like didn't intend to go there to like figure out my pornography addiction. Someone just invited me and I was like, oh yeah, prayer, that sounds so cool. I love prayer. And I got there and they're like, hey, what do you need prayer for? And I was like, I don't think I realized what this is. I thought we were all praying together, but people are praying for me. And the only thing I could think of in that moment was like pornography. And so I told them, I was just like, I really struggle with pornography. And they like gave me a lot of like helpful, like actual like helpful tips and insight into spiritually how like pornography and how it works and affects us. And then they just prayed for me and I felt this like huge burden get lifted off my shoulders. And like, it's not to say that from that day on I swore a vow and I never watched pornography again. Like there have been times and I slip up and I've watched and things like that, but it's certainly not something that controls my life. And it's so few and far between that like I lose track and things like that. And it, especially then being in a relationship that I really, really value this person and want, you know, the best for her, only more so like drives that of like not wanting to engage in that culture. Are we doing helpful tips now or do you want stories first and then tips?
You can share something now if you'd like.
My big tip for everyone is you have to tell someone, and you won't ever change until you do. And it's not like, oh, Sarah, I'm going to tell you because you're my friend. Like, hold me accountable. Like Brad was talking about, like in life groups, like we tell people in our life group, and then it's like, okay, well, we're all struggling with it. And so like we all don't want to tell each other that we're struggling with it. And so then we either lie about it or we just don't hold each other accountable. Like, you'll know you're ready to stop when you can tell your parents. And like, it seems like such an extreme, but like it's an extreme problem. And so it calls for an extreme solution. And like,
or when you tell the person that you most wouldn't want to tell.
Right.
Yeah.
So like for Ryan, like it would be his wife, or like for me, my girlfriend or my parents, and like, you know, that sort of thing. And like, because when you tell them, one, that's the person you're most worried about hurting. So they're probably going to care about you the most and want to actually help you walk it out. But also, the thing that helped me most was prayer and like having people to pray for you through that whole process. Because like we talked about, it's an addiction, and you don't just like say, hey, I'm struggling with alcohol, and then keep going back to bars and stuff. You say, hey, I'm struggling with an addiction. I need to remove myself as far as possible from this situation, and I need a team of people helping me, holding me accountable and praying for me as I go through that healing process, and it takes time. And so don't count your failures like as you're trying to heal and be like, ugh, well, I watched porn today, so I guess I just keep watching it for the next 7 days. Mm-hmm. Like, how long did you go? Okay, well, you were doing it twice a day, every day for 2 years, and now you haven't done it in 2 weeks. That's a huge win.
Yeah.
Like, just keep going and keep building off of that momentum.
Take the little victories.
You really don't see how much of an addiction it is until you talk to other people about it. I completely agree with Jacob. Like, the person that you wouldn't want to know about it the most is the person that can probably help you the most.
Yeah.
And don't count your failures, count your small victories.
That's great.
Anything
you want to share?
Yeah, so for me, never seen it. Just kidding. No, from that initial exposure back in 5th grade, I kind of like, I wouldn't say immediately I was addicted to pornography, but like curiosity gets the best of you. And obviously I'm not going to go ask my parents about anything. And so with the convenience, like we were talking about earlier, I just started like Googling stuff and finding different things. And that kind of turned into like an addiction all throughout like middle and early high school. And then as I kept coming to United and everything, started coming to United late middle school. And so as I started coming and learning about the ways that we can honor God, I realized like, oh, I'm not honoring God with my body or with my eyes right now. And then after that, I didn't do anything about it. And I was just like, well, I guess I'm just not going to honor God. And kept watching everything. And then I got to a point where I was like, okay, I have never felt worse about myself ever in my entire life. And I know that everything that I'm watching is destroying people's lives. And I would be selfish to keep watching it. And so that's when I like reached out and told people and got help. And so I think that my biggest piece of advice would be to tell someone that you don't want to tell, but also not be afraid to like talk about it with other people. I feel like it's like really taboo to be like, oh, I am addicted to porn. But when you're open and honest and willing to tell people, it opens up conversation like Brad was talking about. Like you don't realize how big of a deal it is until you open your mouth and realize that, oh, out of the 45 people in this room, 43 of them are struggling with a porn addiction. Yeah. And going back to that statistic at the very beginning of like 84% or whatever it was, what was it?
It's 84% of boys.
84% of boys
57% of girls.
and 57% of girls. That's, like Ryan said, just the people that are being honest about it. And so I guarantee the numbers on both sides are way higher, especially for females, because it's even more taboo, I feel like. Yeah. Like the fact that Ryan has to keep saying and girls just shows that like our perception is that like women don't struggle with anything related to porn. When that's not the case. So like, I know that out of all of my friends, 90% of them have probably struggled with porn either in the past or are now. And so when we see that statistic, like we know that it's not true. And so don't be afraid to like open up because you're not going to be judged. If anything, you're going to find someone that can relate to you and can help you.
Yeah. And I really appreciate you sharing that, Sarah, because, it's hard to find girls that will say it because there's this perception that girls don't struggle with it. But again, the stats show that girls do struggle with pornography, maybe not quite as widespread as guys, but a large majority of them do. And so, and it's becoming more and more prominent as well. So younger girls struggling more with it than maybe their moms or something like that. So, so yeah, that's really helpful, I think, for anybody that will listen to this that is a female and struggling with it. I would say for me, just real quickly, I was exposed to it in 9th grade. I, again, am old, so like I didn't have an iPhone or whatever, so it was a little easier to avoid. But definitely at different points, probably senior year and then in college and young adult, there were times where I really struggled with it. There were times where I wouldn't look at it for a year and I would really feel freedom from it. But I think it was an on again, off again kind of addiction and something that I struggle with. But here's really what I can encourage you with is the next or 2 verses later from what we talked about earlier with the prostitute verse. It says, it talks about how to get away from sexual immorality. It says flee from sexual immorality. And that's really the number one advice. And it's very simple. You have to run from it. You have to run from it. You have to run from it. You have to get rid of computers. You have to get rid of phones. I have friends that have had me put codes on their on their phones so that they cannot even get on Instagram, Facebook, the internet browser, like, and I'm the only one that has access to it. And they're like, please don't tell me. I don't want to know it. Like you have to take those. I've had someone give me their computer and it's in my garage right now. And it's been in my garage for a year. And probably isn't good for it. Probably the computer's no good anymore because it's in my garage. But like you have to be able to take those big steps. And there were times where I took those big steps and like, I can say very proudly, but also like, it's not like, I can also say it humbly because I know I struggled with it for a long time. Like that, like I haven't looked at pornography in over 6 years. And that's not because I'm married, because so many guys think, oh, I'm going to stop looking at pornography once I get married. Yeah. It's not true. If you're addicted before, you're going to be addicted during, and it's going to affect your relationship. So just know that. But it's not because I'm married. It's because, with the help of Jesus and with the guidance of the Holy Spirit, like I was able to just not want that anymore.
Well, and I'll just add on to that, because not that you're irrelevant because you're old, but like,
But kind of.
But you are old.
But boomer. But genuinely, like, there's boys in Brad and I's life group who have given me their cell phone, and there's a built-in feature for like content blocking on the iPhone. And so like I just create a random password, I put it in my phone, and like their parents have had to call me before because they need to access something on their kid's phone, like for whatever reason. And like they're like, hey, they said you have the password. And I'm like, yeah, here it is. And then like the next week I ask them for their phone and create a new password and like go from there. Or I'll give it to their parents, like in addition to it, and just be like, in case you need it. And so there are like guys in our ministry who are taking it serious enough and wanting to stop, that they've taken those steps. And so like, you're not like a loser or like weak for seeking help like that. And, I think if anything, it shows way more strength than it does weakness, because, you know, you're willing to do the hard thing in order to make a real change to your life.
Yeah.
And what Sarah said about a lot of people dealing with it is really important, because that's like why like all the anonymous groups, Alcoholics Anonymous, narcotics, all that kind of stuff, like they exist to help people that are struggling with it, see other people that are struggling with it, and work together and not feel like you're on an island by yourself.
Yeah.
And you're not. If you're listening to this, you're not. You know it, but I just want to reiterate it. Like, the stats are true. People are struggling with it, and you're not the only one. And there's something we haven't talked about the whole time, but I just want to add it in real quick. It is a major, major contributor to more depression, more anxiety, more loneliness. And that is scientific. That is proven. And there's a great website, and it's not even a religious website. So if you're not a Christian, like, this still applies to you. It's called fightthenewdrug.com, fightthenewdrug.com. And if you go there, or maybe .org, I don't know,
it's
just Google.
.com.
Okay. Fight the New Drug.
Nope, it's .org. I lied.
.org. Okay. Fightthenewdrug.org. Go to it. It's got tons of resources. It's got things that can help you with accountability. It's got all the research, and it's all scientific, all science-based. It's not even about, you won't see one Bible verse on there. It's not a Christian website, but it's people that are saying it doesn't matter what your faith is. This is harmful to people. This is harmful to the people in the videos. It's harmful to people watching it. It's harmful to our society. It's harmful to everybody. It's harmful to mental health. And so it's just bad. It sucks, and we need to fight against it. And so I would highly recommend go to that website.
That's a huge part of my experiences. I was already depressed, and then I fueled depression more with something that caused more depression. And like, it was just this never-ending cycle and self-fulfilling prophecy of like a horrible mental health state. And it wasn't until I stopped doing it that I was able to grow and like experience God's best for me. So,
and freedom feels so good from this.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like when, I think we've all talked about it, like the guilt and the shame, and you mentioned at the very beginning, Brad, like is huge. And so like when you start to experience freedom, you realize like, oh my gosh, like this is so much better.
And it's exhausting trying to hide it. Like like the whole run around, especially like for a student, like living with your parents, like, oh my gosh, I have to make sure like I'm not on Wi-Fi, and then I have to make sure like all the steps you have to go through. And then like, even then, like,
whatever.
And like, is someone going to catch me? And like every footstep is magnified 1,000 times because you're so on alert. Like, that's not living life. That's a horrible, horrible way to live.
It's managing addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I promise you that as awkward as it is, and as awkward as it may feel to have to tell somebody that you don't want to tell, the amount of guilt and the amount of shame and the amount of stress that this addiction causes is a million times worse than that one awkward conversation or a couple awkward encounters that you're going to have actually dealing with it.
And talking about it, you get to present it on your terms and in a space where you're comfortable. If you get caught with it, like,
you're donezo.
It's so much more uncomfortable to be caught with it, because now it's not on your terms. You're not safe. Everyone's angry and upset and
emotional. You feel that guilt and shame and awkwardness all at the same time.
I came home from a class early and walked in on my freshman roommate looking at pornography, and that was awkward. So, and I wasn't even the one that was caught. So it's better to be on your terms, and you're sharing it with somebody, and you're sharing it with somebody that loves you and cares for you and all that kind of stuff.
For sure.
And obviously we're Christians, and so from a Christ-centered perspective, we believe that Jesus wants better for us than an addiction to pornography. He wants better for us than lust, and he wants freedom and life for us. And so, just to kind of sum it up, pornography is a distortion of reality. It's harmful to everybody involved in physically and mentally and emotionally. And if you're a Jesus follower, it's especially important to remember that it falls under the sin of sexual immorality, the same as having sex with someone who is not your spouse. And so we should do whatever it takes to run from it. We should take whatever measures it takes to be free from it, because ultimately that's what God wants for us, is freedom from it. And he wants us to have this abundant life that doesn't involve addiction. So yeah, thanks for joining us for this conversation on pornography, and an extra special thank you to Sarah, Brad, and Jacob for talking about a tough subject and for sharing y'all's experiences, because it took a lot of boldness to be able to share about that. And so thank you guys for being here.
Thanks for having us.
We hope that this time together with you guys was helpful for you. And if you're struggling with pornography, we just want to encourage you to find freedom and do whatever it takes to find freedom. And if you're at all involved with us, or if you find us on social media, message us and we'll help you however we can.
Absolutely.
With resources and all that kind of stuff.
Follow me on Instagram at red.hair.
Yes.
At
Jub
_Jub 21.
Okay.
At Brad Benrick.
All right. Y'all are going to get all kinds of followers from this.
Yep.
It's going to be amazing. Thanks,
and
guys.
I will help any of them.
We love you, and we're going to end it now. Bye.
Bye. Should have saved the applause for the end there.
Yeah, Luke, hit the applause.
Yellow. It's the yellow button.
Didn't work. There we go.
There it is.
Luke,
Bye.
cut that out.